I want to welcome you to the Colony of California Oaks Homeowners Association Budget Town Hall meeting. We are appreciative that you are taking approximately the next hour in order to be better informed about the business of your HOA board and the Finance Committee. At this time, I would like to ask that you mute all electronics that might be heard during the next presentation. Amy, do we have a quorum?
We have a quorum.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn over the next part of the meeting to Mr. Glenn Saylor, who is our liaison and the chair of the Finance Committee. Glenn Saylor, you're on.
Thank you, Walt. The Finance Advisory Committee has prepared this number 4 draft for the upcoming 21-22 budget. This is our main task for the year. We've actually been working on this since in December, last December. Copies have been provided to the board for their approval, to go along with us. For today's workshop, we're going to highlight only those areas that have changed, either up or down. And this will be done by the individuals who have been assigned to each part of the budget. As you'll see, some expenses have been will have been increased, some will have been decreased. The committee will present each major section of the budget, starting on the expense side, followed by the income side. If a board member who has a question, I would suggest that you ask at that time as they come to you. At this time now, I would like to turn it over to Shirley Brose, who will begin our presentation in the administrative portion of the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am going to, first of all, thank the board and everyone else who is listening. I appreciate your time and your attention to this presentation. We will start with expenses, because the expenses of this community are what drives the amount of revenue that we must collect in order to pay all of those expenses. Our first area of expense is the administrative section, and we're going to go line by line, starting with line 29. I hope we change a slide.
Yeah, it's there now.
Yes.
Oh, I don't see it. Okay. Line 29, bank charges for the year. We are decreasing it from $500 last year down to $200 because we're trending well under the budget. And we don't see an increase in these expenses for the next year. Next slide is line 33, dues and subscriptions. We're increasing this line from $5,000 to $5,690. We're anticipating an increase due to increases in some of the dues and subscriptions, as well as additions to new subscriptions once our clubhouse is reopened after the COVID issues. There's a litany of things that this line covers, such as Sam's Club and Netflix and Amazon Prime, our newspapers, Constant Contact, Chamber of Commerce dues, etc. But we do anticipate a bit of an increase, a little over 10% in this area. Line 34, office equipment maintenance is going to, we think, increase from $4,800 to $6,000. This is a contract for our copier, and it includes, and we're in the middle of this contract, so we can't exit it without cost. And it includes the copy machine lease, which is steady, but it also includes lease repairs. And as we use the copier more and more with the COVID issues, we are increasing, seeing increased expenses in the repairs. So we did up that budget line by $1,200. Line 41 is Newsletter services, yay, that's a 0, down $2,500 from last year because we are now printing our newsletter with image up, and it includes ads. And so we don't have a print cost for our beautiful newsletter now. Line 42, salaries and benefits. And I do have a question, Jim Morgan. Should I address the question now, or will we address questions after?
You may explain it and then go to the question right after you've explained this line, since it has to do with this line.
Thank you. Okay. Line 42 is salaries and benefits. We are going up from 918,500 to 945,000, a 26,000, almost $500 increase, which is estimated at a 30% increase. Much of that increase is driven by the state mandatory minimum hourly wage increases, which will be at 15% by the year 2022. Next year, they will be $14.
3%.
They are proposing a gradual increase above and average increases for the past 2 years. We had one question, and I would draw your attention to the last line of this slide. It says the average ratio between salaries and benefits is 70% salaries and 30% benefits. And so I'll address a question that we had from one of our residents. Exactly who are our direct employees, and that we are paying over $900,000 to. We don't have any direct employees. We employ a management company to manage this community, and they have employees. That's the salary and benefit line that you see. They have broken it out between out of their fees so that we can see how much the salaries and benefits are costing us. If we're going to pay, another part of the question, if we're going to pay a projected $947,000 in wages and benefits, then why is there no entry for payroll taxes or workman's compensation? The word benefit includes any kind of payroll taxes that are employer costs, as well as any workman's compensation and any other benefit cost to the employer. So the line that says salaries and benefits includes those already. And at 30%, that is $250,000 of $276,000 of the $918,000 that is in this year's current budget. And I would say that payroll taxes are not an expense. Payroll taxes, withholding taxes come out of the employees' wages and then get paid on their behalf by their employer to the Internal Revenue Service or the state government. It's not an expense. The benefits that employer pays for the employee is an expense, and that is included in that line, $918,000 this year, $947,000 next year. Another part of the question is, if the employees who we are to pay are actually employees of Associa, then please fully explain in detail exactly what we're paying Associa for, and what exactly are the Associa items of performance as defined and contained in the new Associa contract. I can't address the contract. I don't have it, but I'm sure that Mr. Morgan would let a person see that contract if they so wish. You can correct me on that. But the salaries and benefits of the budget covers all on-site employees with the exception of the general manager. The general manager's salary is included in the management fee line. The association does not have any employees. On-site employees are paid for carrying out all day-to-day operations of the association, this 586 home community, which includes all aspects of administrative responsibilities, all of the accounting, rule enforcement, architectural control activities, and recreational and educational programming, maintaining all of the common area facilities and surrounding grounds and amenities, and overseeing all third-party contracts and special projects. And I would add that currently the list of employees without the general manager is 14 people. 2 of those staff member positions are vacant, but a 14-member staff, administrative people, property services, activity and recreation, landscape maintenance, facilities maintenance, and general maintenance is what makes up this $947,000 line, which includes 30% benefits. So that answers that question that was given to us, and thank you for the question. Now we move on to 45, I'm guessing. That's the telephone?
Yes.
And thank you. Yeah, 45. And the telephone service line actually went down from 13,000 to 10 because we're trending under this year. An increase in service would still be covered by the budgeted amount, just in case anything did go up in the last several months of our budget year. So we are recommending that we decrease that line from $13,000 this year to $10,000 next year. Line 48 is staff uniforms. We are decreasing it from 5,500 to 5,000. Last year's budget was actually overstated, and so we have a running rate that is less than our budget, so we took that line item down by 500. Line 51 is legal services collections. We're moving that budget line up from 7,000 to 10,000 for a couple of reasons. Our board is committed to reducing the number of delinquencies on the books, which means we're going to go collect them. And if we can't collect them, then we have to have a collection service that assists us in collecting those. Our current law firm is no longer providing the assessment collection services to any of its clients. And so we have to go out and find a new service provider. And given the fact that we don't know what their charges will be, we're anticipating the possibility of an increase, not only in the amount of services because we want these collected, but also the fee that is associated with those services. Line 52 is legal services lawsuits, and we are increasing from $100,000 this year to $135,000 next year. This is the legal counsel's assessment for any of the costs associated with 2 lawsuits that we have going. We're currently involved in a lawsuit with the Majestic Asset Management, the owners of the golf course. We have lawsuits and legal counsel's recommended budget amounts for, first of all, enforcement of a judgment that will be approximately $50,000 in legal cost. And secondly, action to avoid a trust deed or an alleged fraudulent deed, which will probably be in the area of $85,000. So that is what will make up that $135,000 in lawsuit costs for the next year. And we're going to revisit that when we get to revenue. Line 51 is legal services. Oops. Line 54 is management extras. We're decreasing that by $1,000 from $2,000 to $1,000. And we just haven't had a lot of these. This is like an extra mailing. We currently use a coupon book to pay assessment. And so we don't have a lot of these extra costs that are associated with communicating with our residents. Line 56 is election services. And this is a new item. It covers hiring a third-party election service, which we must do now. And this was the first year of us using that outside service for our election activities, and we did not have it in the budget. So we paid it out of other areas. So we wanted it in the budget in its own line. According to California state law governing homeowner association elections, we are mandated that we use an outside service for this because our staff cannot be associated with our election. We have to keep them all above board. That concludes the administrative costs, and I am going to turn it over to Chuck for utilities. Thank you.
Shirley, I'm going to be reviewing the utilities budget. The utilities budget is the one section of the 8 listed expense categories that's being reduced in the upcoming fiscal year. Utilities was $161,400 in the prior year and is budgeted at $156,700 for the upcoming year. This is a reduction of $4,700 or 3%. The utilities consist of 5 categories or line items: electrics, gas, water, trash and recycling, and cable TV service. However, today I'm going to be reviewing 3 categories that have changed since last year. The first slide is electric service. We have been trending well under budget so far in the 8 months year to date through December of this year, and it appears that we will likely end the year at or below 90,000. Therefore, the Finance Advisory Committee felt comfortable setting the next budget amount at around 95,000, which is a reduction of $10,000 or 9.6% from the prior fiscal year, which happened to be 105,000. The next slide is gas service. Now here, on the flip side, we have substantially gone over budget in the prior 2 years. Therefore, an increase in the gas services budget by 5,000 or 14%, we believe is necessary and warranted. Finally, the last utility slide that I'd like to review is trash and recycling. As you'll note, we are increasing the budget item by a very modest $300, going up from $5,200 to $5,500. And this is simply the result of a small increase to the cost of the service. That concludes the utilities budget. Questions? If not, we'll just proceed.
We do have a
Looks
question.
like you got a couple questions.
Chuck, we have a question. Amy?
I'm just wondering if, and it's a big if, the government lets us reopen anytime soon, is that $10,000? I know it's minus, it's what's happened this last year, but we haven't been using I know it's been air conditioned, but not like it would be with 400 people in the auditorium. So is $10,000 really, what's going to happen at the other end if we open and we go up instead of down?
We've actually been trending under budget the last 2 years.
Okay.
And it was the accumulation or the fact that those 2 years were below budget, and we're currently still trending under budget, that the committee felt very strong that they needed to reduce it. So
Okay. And I had some questions for Shirley, but we'll get there later.
Amy, I'd like to add, just to emphasize Jim's point, we've been averaging around $83,000 in the electric service budget over the last 2 years. Those were actuals.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
90,000 seems pretty comfortable.
That helps. That helps to know that. Thank you.
Chuck, we have another question from Joanne.
Well, I was just going to say what Chuck did. In 18-19, it was 82,800. 2019 to 2020 was 81,700. So we're significantly under.
we're in a good place.
Yeah, it would be nice if we had Tom mentioned this, it would be nice if we had these actuals for the last couple of years, because it kind of helps. I had to go back and pull this off of a bunch of reports so that I knew the actuals. It does help us.
If there's any danger in this budget, in this utility budget, it's going to be in the gas service area. Because we had 56,800 in 2 years ago. And then last year, and that was 57.8% over budget. And then the prior year, which is a year ago, we
45,000.
45.2, which is 25.6% over budget. So we're only increasing by 5,000. So there's a good chance we'll be over 5,000 or be under 5,000 in electric service, and then possibly over 5,000 in the gas. Net would be a wash, but that's the area where I would have any concern, would be in gas service. But it's not going to be a lot. It's not going to be a deal breaker because we have a lot of cushion in electric service.
Any other questions? If no other questions, we'll go on to landscaping, and that's going to be handled by Jim Nash. Jim?
Thank you, Glenn. This expense category constitutes approximately 30% of the overall budget. It includes maintenance and irrigation water for all the green belts, slopes, clubhouse, front yards, wild areas, and the 3 vehicular entrance gates. The total cost of this category is anticipated to be $1,566,047 for the upcoming year, which is an increase of less than 1% over the current year. One area that did increase within the landscape budget is the contract with EC for the maintenance. We are on a multi-year arrangement that calls for annual increases. Although those increases could be as high as 5% each year, our general manager was able to negotiate a 3% increase and kept it at a minimum. Now, the maintenance contract is divided into 7 different sections, and I don't know if we need to go through each one of those, but they all increased across the board by that 3%.
Jim?
And yes.
I think it's especially important to let our residents know that the reason that this is increased, we have this state mandate to increase these fees by $1 an hour for employees. And Jim Morgan was gracious enough to really work those guys. So we did get a substantial discount. Thank you.
To partially offset, Tom.
Oh, Jim, 83, mulch replacement. That's not for the whole colony, that's just for that year, right?
That's replenishment. It's typically on a rotating basis.
Right, okay.
And so it'll be throughout the year, and that's all it's going to take.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that was my question.
Okay, and then we had an increase in the maintenance contract. We were able to offset that somewhat with an increase by transferring the major irrigation repairs from the operating budget to the reserve budget. And that is line 89.
So 83, the mulch replacement, that's just the mulch that gets delivered. The manpower to put it where it belongs is in another place?
It's in the contract, yeah,
Okay.
as an extra, but it is identified at
Okay.
a specific hourly rate in the contract.
And one line item that didn't change and we're happy about is the landscape water, which is also a huge expense, but we anticipate no increase this year. And we did have one question from a homeowner, from Brenda Sindorf. Let's see, 40319 via Marissa. Her question is, how much do we spend a year on mulch? And that wasn't mentioned in the presentation because it's staying the same this year, next year from this year. And that amount is $35,400 for the year. Any other questions? Next.
Jerry Stein, you are up. Gate entry patrol service.
My section is gate entry and patrol service, and the first line I would like to bring your attention to is 95, entitled Property Protection, which is substantially all of the services that our security company provides. And this particular line shows that there's a proposed increase of $15,640 over last year, which is a 2.7% increase. And again, this is primarily due to California's mandatory minimum wage increase of $1 an hour through the year 2022. Additionally, the colony is still under contract with Nordic until April 2022, roughly a year from now. And the contract actually provided for a larger increase, namely about 4.5%. But Jim Morgan, fortunately, was able to negotiate a decrease to 2.7%, which was a 40% reduction. So I give kudos to Jim for that. Are there any questions from the board on this? Okay, hearing none, the next line is 97. We previously were supplying bottled water to the security personnel in the gatehouse, and we've discontinued that service, which results in a savings of $1,650 a year. Next, line 99 is for preventative maintenance for all three of the gate systems, which includes the gate openers, the barrier arm mechanism, the camera systems, ground loops, system computers, printers, and other electronic and Wi-Fi systems. And because we're running below the current budget amount, we're proposing a significant reduction of $10,100. So that takes it from $30,100 to $20,000. And the reason for this is that even though the system is aging and will require maintenance, we believe that the proposed budgeted amount will be adequate for the next fiscal year. And so the bottom line for all of these items in this category results in a proposed net increase of $3,890, which equals 0.6%. Any questions? Okay.
Joanne?
Yeah, Mr. Morgan, in talking to one of your employees, he mentioned that there are some significant, wow, it's a long day, significant problems with the cameras, for instance. I believe that some of those, the readers, may need to be replaced. I know the one at Nutmeg, your front bumper has to be within 2 inches of the arm before it goes up.
Yeah,
Quite right.
Yeah, the readers at least 2 of the gates, when they were installed, were perfectly fine and functioning as the industry latest and greatest. Over the years, since that time they were installed, that particular product is no longer manufactured and is no longer even supported. So it will, as the equipment starts to fail with regard to the transponder readers, they'll have to actually be completely replaced, which is not an operating expense, will be a reserve expense, which is why we're not letting that drive the cost of the maintenance line up. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
How long do you think that will continue to allow some residents to have to back up and do the things that I have to do to get in the Nutmeg Gate? How soon do you think or anticipate that we'll be?
Well, we'll certainly look into that. I hadn't heard that there were increases in that scenario you just described at that gate, but knowing now that I'm hearing that that's becoming more frequent, we'll look into it right away and see if there are issues that merit the replacement rather than adjusting. It may just be an intensity adjustment on the actual reader that might help improve that. If that doesn't work, then it would lead to needing to replace the reader.
I would say that it's increased from what it used to be.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good enough for me. So we'll look into it, and we'll try the intensity first. If that's not sufficient, then we'll look at the replacement side of it.
This could be a discussion that you could have off to the side. I think we should continue on with the budget.
Glenn, just a quickie. It depends on the vehicle. I go through there with no problem ever, and two of my friends have a problem every time, and they have different vehicles, different sizes, so maybe it's just an adjustment there.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's the case. Yeah.
Jerry, would you continue on with repair and maintenance, please?
I'll be happy to. The first line is 105 under the repair and maintenance category, and this is entitled Fire Prevention Equipment. And this is for the monitoring and inspection of all of the fire safety equipment that's located in the association's facilities. And the vendor notified the HOA that there would be a slight increase due to inflation. His proposed increase is a whopping $35 a year, from $2,715 to $2,750. We wish all of the increases were like this.
Yeah.
The next is line 106, HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. And this is for this is for the service and prevention, and preventative maintenance of all of the HVAC systems. And we have 10 HVAC units, which include a 30-ton unit for the auditorium. And this service and maintenance includes upgraded air filters in light of COVID. And it also includes 5 mini split air units that are located throughout the facilities. The remainder of the budget is to perform repairs on all of the systems as required. We're currently trending a little under budget. However, we do recommend that the budget for this category be increased $2,000 from $10,000 to $12,000. And this is due to cover the cost of the upgraded air filters and other unforeseen failures of the HVAC units throughout the fiscal year due to aging. Any questions? Okay, the next line is 107, pest control. And you'll note that 107 and 109 are both for pest control, but line 107, which I'm going to discuss first, is dealing with insects. And this is the maintenance that's provided for pest control around the clubhouse, the gatehouse buildings, and all of the surrounding grounds. We're trending over budget, mostly due to increasing expenses due to bee swarms throughout the community. And this service is now being performed along with the cost of pest control in line 109, which we'll come to. And because of this, we're proposing that there be a reduction of $500 for this line item from $2,000 to $1,500. And then shifting over to line 109, which is the pest control for rodents and squirrels, this now also includes bees. And we don't anticipate an increase for the rodent control, but we're now adding bee removal to this budget line. So there will be a net increase. And we're budgeting the same as last year for the rodent and pest control portion at $17,400. However, we're now adding 6 landscape bee removals, which costs $150 each, and 1 structure bee removal, which is $250. And so these additional items total an additional $1,150. Therefore, we're suggesting the proposed budget be increased by that amount, namely $1,150. And for all of these categories, you can see the net increase went from $68,215 to $70,900, a $2,685 increase. Any questions?
Any questions? If not, we can move on to Chuck, clubhouse operations.
Thank you, Glenn. Clubhouse operations is increasing by $3,620 in the current budget. It's going up from $112,730 in the prior year budget to $116,350 for the upcoming year. The $3,620 increase is a 3.3% increase from the prior year. However, of the total $144,303 aggregate budgetary increase that we're doing this year, the clubhouse operations only consist of a very mere 2.5% of that. So it's a very small percentage of our overall increase in our budget. The clubhouse operations consist of 12 distinct line items or categories. However, we're only going to be looking at 3 today, the ones that had a change. The first slide is indoor plant maintenance services. As you'll note, we're increasing the line item by $120, going from $5,800 in the prior budget to $5,920 in the current budget. This small increase is a result of the vendor slightly raising the cost of their services. The second slide is fitness equipment, maintenance, and repair. We're bringing the budget up from $3,000 to $4,000. And that represents an annual increase, however, of 33%. We're raising this line item as a precaution. It's due to the fact that our equipment is aging and we have expectation that we could be facing more frequent and more costly repairs that may not be covered under the current equipment warranties. Moreover, some of the equipment has computer boards and other expensive components, such as the belt drives on the treadmills. So we're just trying to exercise due diligence and err on the side of caution. Even though we've been slightly trending under budget, we believe it's prudent to increase it by $1,000. The third and final slide in this particular clubhouse operations category is janitorial supplies and maintenance. This budgetary item consists of all the cleaning supplies and paper products in the clubhouse, the annex, and the gatehouse. We have currently been trending over budget, largely the result of the COVID-19 pandemic, due to significant increases in the use of disinfecting and cleaning products and materials. Now, as we start transitioning back to normal times, we believe that there's still going to be a period of at least several months going forward of heavier use than we normally would under normal circumstances. Therefore, we consider raising the budget from $22,500 to $25,000, which is a $2,500 increase or 11.2%. We think it makes a lot of sense. That concludes the clubhouse operations. Questions?
I think you've covered it well, Chuck. I believe we go on to taxes, and that would be Shirley Rose first.
You're muted.
Thank you. We're looking at the area of expenses that it covers taxes, federal tax, state tax, and property tax. Line 131 is federal tax at $25,000. Line 132, California state tax at $10,000. And one might ask why we pay tax. We have to pay income tax to the federal government and the state government for any non-related income, which is interest and investment earnings, non-related to the fees of a homeowners association. Last year, our interest and investment was about $100,000. So we do have to pay tax on that money. We do not see the need for an increase in the federal tax or the California state tax. And the last line, 133 of property tax is the real estate tax on the lot that we purchased, which is at the corner of Avenida Florida and Colony Drive. And so we see no change at all in those three line items of $36,100. Questions?
Amy?
If we do the improvements on Flip That Lot, we'll have to pull permits. They will come down and they will reassess the value of that lot again, right?
Yeah, but it shouldn't.
That always happened every time I redid a house. The value of the house was
Yeah, but eventually, when we get this worked out with the county assessor's office, it will be a no cost to the association because we're not, because of our common areas being exempt from land taxes, our intention is to get that status claimed for that property as well. So it would be a non-issue. But
Okay.
we would be inspected though. There's no question about it. If there's a structure put in there.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, that was my question. How is that going? When do you think that's going to happen? We've had it for a while.
Yeah, that would be coming to the board through legal at a later date soon, though. I have information I could share with the board from legal counsel, but this isn't the forum for that.
Okay.
Hey, moving on, I think we're now ready for Jim Nash to speak reserves.
Yes, this is line 139. This is the reserve part of the budget. Every year, a portion of the association's income is set aside in our reserve fund. This fund enables us as an association to repair or replace all of our common area assets when needed. In the current budget year, we are currently making reserve contributions of $810,000. The proposed budget calls for an increase of $73,621 for a total contribution of $883,621. On the next line, you'll note that the the contributions are supplemented by earned interest on our investments, which is estimated to be $35,000 for this coming year. This figure and recommendation is based on the recently completed reserve study prepared by our consultant, Advanced Reserve Solutions, Inc. Part of the reason for the increase is to maintain the reserves above the 70% threshold, which has been a long and established goal of the board of directors to maintain at or above that 70% funded. And as of the beginning of this next fiscal year, will be approximately 73% funded. This is the final expense category. There are questions?
Nice job.
Yeah, I do. Hey,
Go
Jim,
ahead, Dale.
Yeah.
on that 4,600 some for reserve interest, because we're not getting hardly any interest on our money. So shouldn't that mean that the tax should be going down by a grand or so or more?
It will next year. We're paying taxes on what we earned the year before. So this budget is for 21, 22. And so the taxes that we pay the next year will be lower than the taxes that we are anticipating we'll pay this year. But good question. Absolutely, yes.
And the last item on, shoot.
Jim, one quick question. Prior to this, I think when you were treasurer, you had published a report that showed approximately where that percentage was going to be through the years, like was 68%, and then it was going to 70 and 72. Is that something you currently have?
Yes, and that'll be presented to the board as part of the reserve study.
Great, thank you.
At next Thursday's meeting.
Okay.
So that's the last expense category. And so the total expenses for the year were increasing $144,303, or approximately a 2.8% increase over the current year. I'll turn it back over to Glenn, who's going to address the income side of the budget.
Thank you.
Glenn?
Yes.
Two things. I appreciate that Jim Nash pointed out the percentages of increase in how much our expenses increased, which is 144,000. But I happened to notice as I went through that half of it is the recommended set aside into protecting our assets through our reserve. So kind of puts things into a different perspective when you think about that. And I want to make sure that I address Amy's question about expenses before we go to revenue, or any other ones that I did not. I was rude. I'm sorry.
I actually have a question on line 34, which is office equipment maintenance. Do we like a homeowner's insurance warranty that you can get? Do we have a warranty policy to help defray any of this? Or might that be something that when we replace this, we look into making sure that we have something like that, so that all we have to do is meet a deductible instead of take the whole repair on ourselves?
Well, we don't.
I'm going to,
go
give
ahead.
it to Jim. No, please do.
Well, there are some repairs that are covered under the lease agreement, because this is the first time in a long time we've actually leased the equipment as opposed to own it.
Okay.
Now, this next year, the contract will be up, and we will look at that very option as a board. You can consider whether you want to continue in a lease based on whatever deals we're able to create through that option, or the possibility of owning outright again. But that'll come at a later date.
Okay, and my other question was line item 52, legal services for the lawsuits. That $35,000 increase, that will be recovered if we win those suits, correct?
At least a portion of it.
Yeah.
We to date, we've prevailed in every attempt to solve and resolve these lawsuits up to this point. And we've been awarded attorney's fees every time we've asked. With that being said, it has never been the entire amount. It's been typically a percentage that the judge agrees that is reasonable that we would get back. And it's usually a larger amount than much better than half. It's anywhere from, it's closer to 2/3 of what it actually cost us we can collect. On the initial lawsuit, the trial, a good portion of what we recouped or received had to go and repay the insurance companies for the legal expenses that they paid along the way. And then, of course, we received some back for the counter suit that we had paid for outright.
Thank you.
Oh, Tom?
You don't make money off it, Amy.
We just want to get it vacated.
Joanne Deacon, go ahead.
Well, to add to what Amy said, I think when this money that we're proposing to spend or have to spend on these legal fees that have to do with the golf course, when and if we win, that money was the money that was set aside from the golf course judgment. So it's not like this is coming from our assessment fees. It's coming from the monies that was set aside for the golf course. Even though
that's a good. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a good point to make. When they do start to talk and cover the expenses, pay close attention to the discussion, those that are listening in, about the lawsuit prior year surplus line as the income, because the board and the committee has made a recommendation to the board, feeling that this is hopefully a short-term issue. The lawsuit will eventually go away. So they're, for the first time, using 100% of this settlement money to just put it right back into the legal costs. So that line, the $135,000, is 100% being covered by that golf course settlement fund.
Right.
So that's a great thing. That was $7.10. We avoided having to increase the assessment. So that was a great decision or recommendation being made. But anyway, I just want to make that point.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, now that we've covered the projected expenses, we can now focus on the income needed to make balanced budget. Yes.
Let me ask one question. Why can't we? I asked it last time. On the deaf ears. Why can't we have the actual price on, let's say, the column 2019 and 20 on these sheets?
I mentioned that earlier today, Tom, in the open session or in executive, I don't remember, but the finance committee has agreed that we need to have an additional column in there that shows the actual cost that we've spent so far. That's going to come alongside the same request you had for having a budget at mid-year, so we know what we've spent. So
Okay.
Well,
we are working on that.
Well, and I was going to say the only column, Tom, that can be done on this particular report that you have in front of you now, or proposed budget draft 4, is the very far right column,
Right.
the 2019-20.
That's what I asked you.
The one we can give you actual.
Jim, I understand that.
Yeah.
That's why I said that column, because that's been already certified and everything. It should be on this column. So then you at least could have some, so people could at least look at it and see what's going on.
Moving on.
Understood.
Tom, we have settled it. Joanne, do you have a question?
One additional comment to that, I wrote that in on my page from previous reports, but you could take year to date as of December and write where we are in December. And it did help me understand what we paid and where we were. It's possible. You do year-to-date plus the 2019, 2020 actuals.
Well, and a suggestion may be, or a potential solution is we just add one more column in that the 2019, for instance, the 2019-20 budget, I think is important to have there to show
Yes.
how you have budgeted over those 2 years prior to the one you're working on, but add an additional column to the right that says 2019-20, for instance, actuals. So, that's not something that would be that difficult to do, but we'll talk.
Yeah, because
about
you're
that.
looking at budget. We're used to looking at actuals too, and it helps us make the decision.
We have two sources of income. I'm speaking primarily for residents. I believe all the board members know this. Certainly the finance committee does. We do have two sources of income. Obviously your dues. And of course, the second source is, there are several small sources, but the main one is usually interest earned from our investments. And we know that's been way down based on the information of what's going on in the market today. So given these projected expenses for the coming year, the finance committee, we are recommending an increase in homeowners assessment of $3 per month. We're actually short $57,000, $57,096. So this represents an increase of $3 per homeowner, which will take it from 252 to 255, which actually represents a 1.2% increase. Now, what's important about that 1.2% increase, we've done some homework on the Consumer Price Index, and we find that the most current publication shows for the last month, and it actually compares from January to January. It actually compares the average of the two different indexes that are out there is 2.3%. Well, we looked at that and we know people are concerned because of the pandemic. We haven't been able to go in the clubhouse. We've had to keep the clubhouse open. So all those expenses, they're still there. They're fixed expenses. We're not a profit and loss corporation. They're fixed income and fixed expenses. So we're going to be at $3 per month, and that's a 1.2, which is less than the Consumer Price Index, which is an average of 2.2%. So although the committee's recommendation for dues increase has nothing to do with the government CPI, it is given for comparison purposes only. We can go on through this a little bit, and I want to call your attention to some of these lines that have become important to us. If you look at your under expenses or total income, if you look at line number 3, the golf course activity, in the past few years, we haven't received anything from the golf course. With the new person on there, with the new receiver, we expect that to start coming in anytime now. Now, line item number 4, this item was decreased by $500. That's gate and access fees. Yeah. They looked at what we had, what we needed, and they're currently trending under the annual budget. So that's the numbers we come up with. Number 5 is the key income. We've decreased that also by $500, and they're again trending under. So you can see we don't have the money coming in that we need to maintain what we're spending, what we're putting out. Now, I look back at it and I figured $3. People are going to not understand $3, but if you stop and think about it, that's 10 cents per day for the whole year, or $3 a month, $36 for the year. Now, I want to continue on with prior year surplus, which happens to be line 9. Line 9 shows a recommended use of $39,532 from next year's budget. We're taking that out so we can offset some of the increase in expenses. And we'll actually save homeowners approximately $2.08 a month by using that. Golf course settlement fund number 10, that's being reduced. They're utilizing $135,000 of that from the golf course to offset the monthly assessments as well. Item number 11, late fees and interest charges. We anticipate a lower allowance for this category. This is based on the trend so far in this current year. So if you look at line items 14 and 15, interest earned operating account, you see we've actually $7,000. We have decreased from last year, and interest earned for reserves, we've actually dropped $4,656. And I can tell you that the interest earned from our investments, we have been in touch and we talked with our financial advisor frequently, and he's advising us that the interest rates that they're paying now are very, very low. Our investment policy has been in the past of going from anywhere from 1 to 4 years investing. Well, he's even recommended that we shorten that. We can now do 6 month, 3 month, 9 month. It's whatever the best numbers that we can get on our money. And when something comes due, he is in touch with us. We look at what he's saying and either say yes or no. That pretty well concludes the income. You see that if you look at the top of the variance of the owner's assessment, we are $57,096 short, and that works out to a 1.2% increase or $3 per homeowner per month. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Glenn,
Yes.
on number 9, the prior year surplus, we're utilizing 39,000 of prior year surplus.
Which line are you looking at?
9.
I'm sorry, line 9. Prior line, yes.
Yeah, so does that leave us a balance, or is that the whole surplus?
Oh, no, there is,
Glenn, if I could just interject and say that it's surplus from prior years. It's not the current year's surplus.
I understand. Does that leave a balance?
Yes, there would be a balance.
Big balance or a little balance?
Well, that goes to the earlier report in the last meeting that Chuck had given to talk about the current equity. And I think if you take I think it's at 1.6 million if you include the golf course settlement fund that was set aside for legal costs. But if you take that 300 and some thousand out, then you're down to, I think, 1.3 in that range, 1.25 or something like that.
I guess I didn't say my question correctly. Why didn't we take out more than 39,000 or maybe 50,000? I mean, how much surplus do we have to play with, the prior year's surplus?
Well, again, one is you're going to want to be consistent with the board's policy on the prior year surplus that you have. I'm going to call it equity that you have for some people refer to it as the rainy day fund. It's being ahead of yourself with regard to your expenses. So the industry standard is to have 2 to 3 months worth of operating expenses on hand to cover any unexpected expenses that would be operating expense, and two, dealing with always being ahead of your bills. So, and that for our association equates to approximately, the board is comfortable with 2.5 months, which is right at about $1 million. And then of course you have the golf course fund, which is another 340 some thousand, which leaves about 300 plus $1,000 that's kind of in limbo there. And that will be explained further when we were talking more about the pool pavilion project that's coming up that Walt announced earlier today.
So we could have taken more out of the settlement fund if we wanted to.
Well, yeah, absolutely. The board could have done 100% if it chose to, but whenever you increase the or you have an increase in your assessments, to take and have the majority of it, that increase absorbed by prior year's surplus, is really in essence kicking the can down the road. That's a literal expense you're eventually going to have to come to reality and deal with. So to have more of a balance between the two, using an increase on the association side, you always, as an owner in an or in a HOA, you got to understand when you have amenities and level of service, there are expenses that are impacted by inflation at the very least. And if you're not making sure that is addressed with your assessment, and you're only using other funds for that, when that till runs dry, say the surplus funds run dry, you're going to have to accept eventually 100% of those increases that have been deferred with prior surplus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm okay. That's
Okay.
I would like to say at this time, this is a proposed budget by the Financial Advisory Committee. If the board chooses to do something else, you want to go through this and make some other decisions, that's up to the board. But this is what the Finance Advisory Committee, who has all the expertise in the world for our community, that's what we are suggesting that we do. It's not final, it's our proposal. Are there any other questions?
Excellent job.
Good
Amy?
job.
I agree with Marianne and Tom. Excellent job. Thank you all for your expertise and sharing it with us for free. It's more of a comment. It feels to me, as a budgeter my whole life, that taking some from the different pots, as you're explaining, we're taking some surplus and then we're asking for a percentage, a small 1.2% increase from the people, which is less than CPI. And we all know, we've all gone to the grocery store. I'm newly acquainted with doing that now. And I've seen the prices just spiraling upwards, just going. It would be to our detriment and to future owners' detriment if we don't have some realistic thoughts about that some of it should come from an overage and some of it needs to come from us just opening our purses and putting out that 1.2%, which is better than 2.3.
Thank you, I agree.
At this time, if there are no more questions, I'd like to turn it back over to Walt Bowman.
Thank you, Glenn. I want to remind everybody who's watching in that next Thursday, the 25th of February at 1 o'clock, there will be an open session where the budget will be approved or altered or whatever we need to do at that time. So please mark the 25th at 1 o'clock to tune in to watch the board either accept or alter the budget. Secondly, it was a superior job that was done tonight by our finance committee. It's a word beyond exceptional, it's superior.
Yes.
I want to thank Jim Morgan. I want to thank the finance committee. I want to thank Glenn Saylor. It is not easy in a day like we have today with the pandemic, where most people want to see a reduction. It was a fine job of coming in. If you all remember 2 years ago, our then treasurer, Jim Nash, reminded us that most years we would have to consider a $5 increase. This year, we have come under that. And while it would be nice to say there's nothing, 10 cents a month, $3, 10 cents a day, $3 a month, $36 a year is a phenomenal job. I want to thank each of you for your contribution. For those watching, these are volunteers who give their time, and I talk about a massive amount of time, to bring this budget in. This is why we constantly ask all of you that are watching, volunteer for the different committees. Let us know where you would like to serve, and we will do everything we can. In the meantime, I also want to thank the board. We started at 1 o'clock today. We had almost a 3.5-hour executive. We then had a little bit over an hour open session. And now we finished tonight with about an hour and 45-minute budget. It's been a long day for all of you who are watching. We thank you for being involved in order to be informed. May you have a wonderful evening. And may you get back to us with any of your concerns, questions, or platitudes. But once again, I thank the Finance Committee. I thank the members of the board and the management team and associates for making today an informative day for all of our residents. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.